Alright folks, this is going to be a good fight. I'm excited for this matchup. And in this video we're analyzing two long, rangy, crafty fighters in Kevin Holland and Randy Brown using the Fighter Index, a system that evaluates fighters across 16 attributes. We'll break down where each fighter is most dangerous, where they're vulnerable, and how their skill sets match up across striking, grappling, and defense. By the end of the video, you'll have a clear picture of who holds the edge and why. Kevin Holland fights with creativity, length, and constant offensive threat. At welterweight, his ability to mix striking and grappling makes him dangerous in multiple phases of the fight. On the feet, he uses his reach well, throwing from awkward angles and keeping opponents guessing with unorthodox timing. What separates Holland is his willingness to engage. He's always active. He's looking to create openings, whether that's through striking exchanges or opportunistic submissions. He's also comfortable with chaotic moments, able to capitalize quickly when fights break down. When Holland is in a flow state, he becomes unpredictable and difficult to prepare for, with real finishing ability with both striking and grappling. Kevin Holland's style can become inconsistent when fights require discipline and control. While his creativity creates opportunities, it can also lead to defensive lapses and openings for opponents to exploit. He doesn't always manage distance or pace effectively, which can allow more disciplined fighters to dictate where the fight takes place. In grappling-heavy matchups, he's shown vulnerabilities against sustained control, especially when opponents commit to takedowns and positional dominance. His willingness to engage in chaotic exchanges can also work against him, leading to moments where he gives up control of the fight. When Holland isn't dictating the action, his effectiveness can become more reactive than intentional. Randy Brown fights with control, he fights with discipline and technical precision. At welterweight, he uses his length and footwork to manage distance effectively, keeping opponents at range while picking his shots carefully. His striking is clean and measured, built around timing rather than volume, and he does a good job of staying composed under pressure. What stands out most is his ability to control the pace of the fight. He doesn't rush exchanges, instead he forces opponents to work at his tempo. Brown also brings a well-rounded skill set, mixing in clinch work and grappling when needed to maintain control. When he's dictating the rhythm and the range, he becomes a difficult fighter to break down. Randy Brown's style can stall when he's unable to control distance and tempo. While he's effective at range, opponents who apply constant pressure can force him into less comfortable exchanges when his output slows. His measured approach can also lead to lower volume, making rounds closer than they need to be on the scorecards. In grappling situations, while capable, he hasn't always imposed dominant control over stronger wrestlers. When Brown is pushed into a faster pace or forced to react rather than dictate, his effectiveness can dip, and his advantages don't always scale the same way under sustained pressure. Now we look at both fighters in the Fighter Index Tail of the Tape. In the Fighter Index Tail of the Tape, both fighters bring solid experience in this matchup. Kevin Holland enters with a 27-15 record with one no contest, including a 14-12 run inside the UFC, while Randy Brown stands at 20-7 overall and 13-7 inside the promotion. Physically, they're both evenly matched at 6'3", but Holland holds a slight 3-inch reach advantage at 81 inches compared to Brown's 78 inches. Stylistically, both fighters operate out of the orthodox stance, making this a matchup that comes down to less to stance dynamics and more to how each manages distance, timing, and control. Looking at momentum and finishing stats, both fighters enter on losing streaks, with Kevin Holland on a 2-fight skid and Randy Brown coming off a 1-fight loss. In knockout wins, Holland leads with 14 compared to Brown's 8, highlighting his power and finishing ability on the feet. In submission, Holland again holds the edge, 9 to Brown's 5, showing more danger on the ground. First round finishes further emphasize that gap, 12 for Holland and only 4 for Brown, pointing to Holland's ability to end fights early. And when the fight goes the distance, Holland has 4 decision wins while Brown has 7. Now it's time to break these fighters down using the Fighter Index scale. We break down each phase of the fight and score each fighter's skills to better understand the strengths and the weaknesses of a fighter's game. All Fighter Index scores are based on a scale of 1 to 10. Scores are subjective and can change as a fighter evolves from fight to fight. Here's how it works. There are 4 pillars that represent a skill set and 4 skills that make up a pillar. Each skill is scored and the number value represents a level, 1 being non-functional and 10 being rare or generational. Then at the end of the video, we take the scores of each skill in the pillars and give each fighter a Fighter Index score that represents their overall skill set. In Pillar 1, Fight IQ and Athletic Tools, the matchup is very close with one key difference. Randy Brown holds the edge in Fight IQ, scoring a 7 compared to Holland's 6, reflecting slightly stronger discipline and consistency how he manages fights. Athletically, they're both even at 8 apiece, both fighters bringing length, fluid movement, and physical tools to the division. In stamina, they're also even at 7, showing both men can maintain a solid pace across rounds. And in resolve, it's even again at 7, with both fighters capable of pushing through adversity. With a slight edge in decision making and control, this pillar leads towards Randy Brown. In Pillar 2, striking and stand-up defense, the matchup stays competitive, but the edges lean in one direction. In pure striking, both Kevin Holland and Randy Brown score an 8, showing strong effectiveness and finishing ability on the feet. In clinch, Brown holds a slight edge 7-6, bringing more control and composure in tight exchanges. The biggest separation comes defensively, where Brown scores a 7 in striking defense compared to Holland's 5, showing a clear ability to avoid damage and manage range. In durability, Holland flips one category back in his favor with a 7 in chin to Brown's 6, giving him a bit more ability to absorb shots. With the advantage in defense and clinch control, this pillar favors Randy Brown. In Pillar 3, grappling and control, the matchup is competitive, but the dynamic shifts once the fight hits the mat. In wrestling, Randy Brown holds a slight edge, scoring a 6 compared to Kevin Holland's 5, showing a slightly stronger ability to initiate grappling exchanges. In takedown offense, they're even at 5 apiece, with both fighters capable of bringing the fight to the ground when opportunities present themselves. In top control, they're also even at 5, indicating that neither fighter has a major advantage in maintaining dominant position once they get there. But in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the difference becomes significant, with Holland scoring an 8 compared to Randy Brown's 6, bringing a much more dangerous submission threat and a far more active offensive game, especially from the bottom position. With the clear advantage in submission threat and overall danger in grappling exchanges, this pillar favors Kevin Holland. In Pillar 4, defense scrambles and ground survival, the matchup shows clear strengths on both sides. In takedown defense, Randy Brown holds a strong advantage, scoring a 7 compared to Kevin Holland's 4, showing a much more reliable ability to keep the fight standing. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu defense, they're even at 7 apiece, with both fighters capable of staying safe in submission exchanges. Off the back, Holland flips the advantage to an 8 to Brown's 6, making a more dangerous fighter when working from the bottom position. And scrambles are even again at 7, showing solid transitional abilities on both sides. With a major advantage in takedown defense, this pillar favors Randy Brown. Now, when you take everything from the 4 pillars and you put it together, this is where the fight really starts to come into focus. This isn't about individual skills anymore, this is about how those skills show up when the fight is actually happening. Who's controlling the pace, who's forcing their style, and where each fighter is most effective. Because on paper, the matchup is competitive, but when you break it down phase by phase, you start to see how this fight is likely to play out. In Pillar 1, Randy Brown has the edge. He's the more composed fighter with slightly better decision making, which should help him guide the pace to keep the fight where he wants it. On the feet, both fighters are dangerous, but Brown's defensive awareness and cleaner positioning give him the advantage in exchanges, especially if he keeps things measured and avoids getting drawn into wild moments. In grappling, the dynamic flips towards Holland. While Brown has a slight edge in initiating exchanges, Holland's submission threat and activity on the ground make him a more dangerous fighter once the grappling develops. Defensively, Brown separates himself the most. His ability to defend takedowns and stay in favorable positions makes him harder to control, while Holland's biggest threat comes when he's attacking off of his back. So this fight likely comes down to where it takes place. If it stays standing and measured, Brown has the edge, but if the grappling exchanges become a factor, Holland's submission threat can quickly change the fight. Now we look at each fighter's path to victory based on what we learned from the 4 pillars. Kevin Holland's path to victory centers on activity, unpredictability, and creating wild exchanges. While Randy Brown holds advantages in discipline and defensive control, Holland's best success comes when he disrupts that rhythm and forces exchanges on his terms. On the feet, he should use his reach and willingness to engage to create openings, mixing strikes from different angles and keeping the fight less predictable. But where this fight really shifts is in grappling. Holland's 8 in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu makes him a serious submission threat, especially when he's attacking off his back. If Brown looks to control him on the mat, Holland has the tools to turn these positions into dangerous opportunities. For Holland, this fight is about increasing pace, forcing reactions, and capitalizing on openings, whether the fight stays standing or transitions into grappling exchanges. Randy Brown's path to victory centers on control, discipline, and managing distance. He holds clear advantages in fight IQ, striking defense, clinch work, and especially takedown defense, and those need to define the fight. On the feet, Brown should look to keep the fight technical, using his length and footwork to control the range and limit Holland's ability to create unpredictable exchanges. Defensively, his ability to avoid damage and stay composed will be key in slowing Holland's activity. If If grappling comes into play, Brown's stronger takedown defense allows him to keep the fight where he's most comfortable while avoiding Holland's dangerous submission game off his back. For Brown, this fight is about staying disciplined, controlling tempo, and forcing Holland to fight a controlled, technical battle. When the numbers are finalized, Randy Brown holds a slight edge with a 6.7 fighter index score compared to Kevin Holland at 6.3. That difference is driven by Brown's advantages in fight IQ, striking defense, and overall control across multiple phases. However, Holland holds a clear advantage in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which shifts the dynamic of the matchup. His submission threat adds a real layer of danger, especially in grappling exchanges where he doesn't need dominant position to create finishing opportunities. While the overall skill set still leans towards Brown on paper, Holland's ability to create high-risk moments on the ground makes this a much more competitive fight than the numbers alone suggest. And that's the breakdown for Kevin Holland versus Randy Brown using the fighter index. The numbers point towards Brown's control, defense, and consistency as the overall edge, but Holland's creativity and finishing ability give him a very real path if he can turn the fight unpredictable. Now the question is, where do you think this fight's actually going to play out? On the feet or in the grappling exchanges? Let me know your prediction in the comments, and if you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next fighter index analysis.